You know, a war that's happening thousands of miles away, it can feel abstract, right? It's easy to see it as a tragedy on a screen, something that belongs to someone else. But as this war in the Middle East spins out of control, the official story, well, it's starting to fall apart. So today, we're going to deconstruct the official narrative, piece by piece, to really understand how we ended up here. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, with the first layer of the story we were all told. The promise that this would be a quick, clean, and very limited operation. I mean, just look at the difference here. The promise, the public relations pitch for Operation Epic Fury, was that it would be over in 48 hours, a surgical strike. But the reality, just 1 month later, a chaotic, uncontrollable fire spreading across the entire region. The promise of surgical precision very quickly turned into a bloody, sprawling conflict. See, the planners apparently thought the Iranian establishment would just crumble. But that's not what happened. Instead, Iran hit back hard with what's called asymmetric warfare. We're talking drone and missile strikes on US bases all over the Gulf. And the big one? They basically shut down the Strait of Hormuz. The second insurance companies refused to cover ships going through there, this regional fight instantly became a global economic crisis. And because that initial plan failed so spectacularly, the public reason for the war started to change fast. It's what a lot of critics are now calling a classic bait and switch. Just follow this timeline. The mission started with a very clear, limited objective: take out nuclear facilities. Okay. But within a few weeks, that goalpost moved to eliminating missile capabilities. And now, in March, they're not even hiding it. The goal is openly stated as regime change. This shows you the mission creep in real time, which many argue was the real plan all along. And it's not just the military goals that have changed. The justifications have too. This quote, reportedly from the US Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, shows the story shifting completely away from strategic defense and towards pure ideology. He's framing it as a religious war, and, importantly, the execution of an Israeli-designed plan. So this all leads to a really important question. How do you get other countries to join a war they don't want to be in? Well, it turns out there might be a playbook for this. A playbook for manufacturing public consent. And one of the key tools in that playbook is something called a false flag operation. The idea is simple, but it's incredibly effective. You commit an attack, you blame it on your enemy, and then you use the public outrage to justify hitting back and dragging your allies into the fight. And right here, we might have a perfect example. European countries like the UK, France, and Germany were hesitant. They only jumped into the war after the supposed Iranian drone strike in Cyprus. The problem is, intelligence sources are now seriously questioning where that drone actually came from, with leaks suggesting it wasn't Iran at all. And listen, this kind of thing isn't just a wild theory. It's happened before. There are documented cases right in the same region. You have the Lavon affair back in '54, and the extremely controversial attack on the USS Liberty in '67. Using deception to hit your strategic goals, well, it has a history. So that brings us right back to today. With all these new mysterious attacks hitting NATO and Saudi targets, attacks that Iran swears it has nothing to do with, you have to ask, are we just watching the same playbook run all over again to pull even more nations into a global war? And this is where it gets personal, because the war isn't just in the Middle East anymore. The ripples have now crossed the Arabian Sea. They've breached the Indian Ocean. The conflict is literally at India's doorstep now. In what is a massive escalation, an American nuclear submarine torpedoed and sank an Iranian warship, the IRS Dana. But the really shocking part is where this happened. We're talking off the coast of Sri Lanka, hundreds and hundreds of miles from any declared combat zone. And here's the context that makes this so much more than just another sinking. The Iris Dina had just finished a friendly, diplomatic visit to a port in India. So think about it. This wasn't just an attack on Iran. It was an act of aggression in neutral waters involving a ship with a direct, recent, peaceful connection to India. The human cost here is also staggering. The Sri Lankan Navy thankfully managed to rescue about 30 sailors, but reports are indicating that US forces left over 100 Iranian crew members in the water. That is a potential violation of basic maritime law about rescuing sailors from shipwrecks, even in war. So this one event just blows the whole thing wide open. Was this a deliberate attack in neutral waters? Does this signal that the established international rules of war at sea are just being thrown out the window? And all of this brings us to the final, critical point of our explainer. What does this all mean for India? What are the unavoidable and frankly dangerous consequences for our policy of strategic autonomy? Just wrap your head around this number for a second. This war is estimated to be costing the Pentagon $1 billion a day. That kind of spending just isn't sustainable. And when resources get stretched that thin, history shows us that the United States starts leaning on other nations for help. And we're already seeing this pattern of pressure loud and clear. The US is reportedly yanking air defense systems away from its own allies to send to Israel. It openly threatens Spain with severe consequences for not letting them use their military bases. For many analysts, this signals a much more aggressive, my way or the highway foreign policy. So the crucial point is this. Looking at this pattern, you have to wonder what's next for New Delhi. As this war gets longer and more expensive, is it inevitable that the US-led coalition will demand access to India's naval ports and air bases? And that really puts India in a tough spot, a perilous crossroads. Will our nation be able to hold on to its hard-won strategic autonomy, its independence on the world stage? Or will we be forced to pick a side under the crushing pressure of a coalition fighting an ever-expanding war? So we've looked at the official story, the shifting goals, the questionable attacks, and the consequences now spilling into the Indian Ocean. It all leaves us with that one big, lingering question we started with. When you look at this entire complex web, who is actually pulling the strings?